The millionaire baby wasn't eating anything. The cleaner gave him breast milk and he was saved. The baby of Sydney's richest man hadn't eaten for 5 days, and no one knew that he would die in my arms that night. Those were the words Sarah Riley never imagined she would have to utter before a judge. But that morning of October 15th, as she cleaned the marble floors of the Campbell mansion in the exclusive suburb of Mosman, everything changed forever. Sarah was 24 and had only been working for 3 months as a domestic helper in that imposing 3-story residence, with gardens that looked like they were out of a European magazine and water features that cost more than she had earned in her entire life. She came from a small country town in regional NSW, where poverty had taught her to value every dollar, every opportunity. 6 weeks ago, she had given birth to a girl, a beautiful baby who barely breathed for 4 hours before God decided to take her away. The doctors at Royal North Shore Hospital said it had been a congenital heart malformation. Sarah still felt the weight of those empty little arms, the silence where there should have been cries, the milk her body continued to produce without anyone to feed. She desperately needed the money, the funeral debts, the rent for her tiny flat in Penrith, the pension she sent to her sick mother in Wagga Wagga. That's why she accepted the job at the Campbell's house, despite the pain she felt every time she saw the luxury bassinets in the new heirs room. David Campbell owned Campbell Holdings, a real estate investment empire valued at over 200 million Australian dollars. His face frequently appeared on the covers of the Australian and the Sydney Morning Herald. A 2-year-old man. Dark hair with some distinguished grey, a strong jaw, and grey eyes that intimidated anyone who crossed his path. His wife, Victoria Maxwell Davies, was everything Sarah was not. Tall, slender, with that air of superiority that only inherited wealth can give. She came from an old money family in Melbourne and had never worked a day in her life. Her world revolved around charity events, exclusive spas, and dinners at hatted restaurants. They had had their first child just 2 weeks prior, Sam Campbell Maxwell Davies, a baby who should have been the joy of that perfect family, but who was becoming their worst nightmare. That night, Sarah was vacuuming the second-floor hallway when she heard the screams. It was 2 a.m. They came from the master bedroom. "I can't take this anymore, David. I can't. This child is ruining my life." Victoria's voice sounded hysterical, on the verge of collapse. "Calm down, please. The doctors said they'll find a solution." David's voice sounded tired, defeated. "He hasn't eaten for 5 days. 5? How many formulas have we tried? 1, 20? He rejects them all. He's dying and you ask me to calm down." Sarah froze. She knew something was wrong with the baby. Over the past few days, she had noticed the constant parade of pediatricians, specialized nutritionists, even a child gastroenterologist who came from St. Vincent's private hospital. "The Smiths invited us to Hamilton Island this weekend. Do you realize I can't go? Do you realize I have to cancel everything because this child won't eat?" Victoria sobbed, but there was something strange in her cry. It didn't sound like a worried mother. It sounded like someone annoyed, resentful. "Victoria, he's our son. He's your son. I didn't want to get pregnant yet, you insisted. You said we needed an heir for the company, to close the deal with the Dubai investors. This was your idea." Sarah felt nauseous. How could a mother speak like that about her own baby? She would give anything, whatever it took, to have her little Ella back in her arms. Suddenly, a weak, very weak cry. It was the baby. "There he goes again. I can't stand it. I'm going to sleep in the guest room. You do something." Victoria slammed the door, walking past Sarah without even looking at her, in her ivory silk dressing gown and designer slippers. Sarah waited a few minutes. The baby's cry continued, growing weaker, more desperate. It was a sound that tore at her soul. She knew that cry. It was the cry of a child who was hungry, who needed to be fed, who needed his mother. But his mother had gone to sleep. She made a decision that would change everything. She approached the master bedroom door and knocked softly. "Mr. Campbell, excuse me, do you need help?" David opened the door. His eyes were red, his hair disheveled, his shirt wrinkled. He was holding the baby against his chest, rocking him awkwardly. Sam was so small, so fragile. His skin had taken on a worrying pale tone. "Sarah, I don't know what to do. He won't eat. Nothing works. The doctor said if he doesn't accept food soon," his voice broke. This powerful man, capable of moving millions with a signature, was collapsing under the helplessness of not being able to save his son. "Can I try something, sir?" Sarah instinctively extended her arms. David looked at her in surprise, but desperation took over. He handed her the baby. As soon as Sarah took Sam into her arms, She felt something she hadn't felt since she lost Ella. A connection. The baby stopped crying for a moment and opened his dark little eyes, looking at her as if he recognized her, as if he knew she understood his pain, his hunger, his need. "Mr. Campbell, I had a baby 6 weeks ago. She died a few hours after birth." Sarah felt tears rolling down her cheeks. "My body still produces milk. If you allow me, if the doctors don't find another solution, I could try to breastfeed him just for tonight, just so he has something in his stomach." David was in shock. He looked at Sarah, then at the baby, then back at Sarah. 1,000 thoughts must have been crossing his mind. Protocol, social classes, what his wife would say, what Sydney society would think. But then he looked at his son, that baby who had been rejecting all food for 5 days, who was weakening hour by hour, whom the best pediatricians in Australia couldn't save. "Please," David whispered. "Save my son." Sarah nodded. With the baby in her arms, she walked to the sofa in the room, sat down, and with trembling hands, adjusted the blouse of her blue uniform. She brought little Sam to her chest. What happened next was a miracle. The baby latched immediately. With a strength no one would have imagined in his weakened little body, he began to suckle, to feed, to live. David slumped into a chair, covering his face with his hands. He cried. He cried with relief, with gratitude, with emotions he didn't know how to process. Sarah looked at the baby as she breastfed him, feeling that terrible emptiness in her chest begin to fill again. It wasn't Ella. She could never replace her daughter. But in that moment, holding that child who needed her as much as she needed to give life, she felt that maybe, just maybe, they could both save each other. Sam ate for 20 minutes. When he finally unlatched, his lips were wet with milk, and there was an expression of absolute peace on his little face. He fell asleep in Sarah's arms, breathing deeply, calmly. For the first time in 5 days, the millionaire baby was satisfied. But neither David nor Sarah imagined that this desperate act of love would unleash a storm that would destroy secrets, reveal lies, and confront two worlds that should never have crossed paths. Because Victoria Maxwell Davies was not going to allow a simple domestic helper to become her son's salvation. And there was something else, something David didn't know yet, something Victoria had jealously hidden during all those months of pregnancy. Little Sam held a secret in his blood, a secret that explained why he had rejected all food, except Sarah's. But that was yet to be discovered. The dawn light entered through the windows of the Campbell mansion when Victoria woke up in the guest room. It was 7 a.m., and for the first time in almost a week, she had managed to sleep for 6 consecutive hours without interruptions, without Sam's constant cries, without calls from doctors, without the suffocating pressure of feeling watched, judged, labeled as an incompetent mother. She looked in the mirror, 38 years old, but looked younger thanks to monthly facial treatments at the exclusive aesthetics clinic in Double Bay. Her perfectly straightened blonde hair, her skin without a wrinkle, thanks to strategic Botox. She had recovered her pre-pregnancy figure in record time, exercising 3 hours daily with her personal trainer. The pregnancy had been a nightmare, not because of morning sickness or cravings, but because it meant losing control of her body, her image, her social life. David had insisted so much on having an heir. "The Dubai investors want to see family stability," he would say. "We need to show continuity in the business." For Victoria, Sam was more of a business requirement than a desired son. She put on her cashmere robe imported from Italy and walked barefoot towards the master bedroom. She expected to find David exhausted, the baby crying as always, the same chaos as always. But what she saw left her paralyzed. David was asleep in the armchair by the window with a blanket over his legs, and in the oak rocking chair that cost $3,000 AUD, Sarah, the domestic helper, held Sam against her chest. The baby slept soundly with rosy cheeks, breathing calmly. On the side table was a heart rate monitor that some doctor must have left, showing completely normal vital signs. "What the hell is going on here?" Victoria's voice cracked like a whip in the silent room. David woke up with a start. Sarah opened her eyes, startled, instinctively pressing the baby against her in a protective gesture. "Victoria, I can explain." David quickly stood up. "Explain what? Why is this woman in our bedroom? Why does she have my son?" Victoria advanced with clenched fists, her normally controlled face now distorted by fury. The baby was dying. Sam hadn't eaten anything for 5 days. No formula worked. "Sarah," she offered to help. "Help? What kind of help?" Victoria looked at Sarah with absolute contempt. She then noticed the uniform blouse slightly open, the milk stains on the fabric, and understood. "No, no, no. You're telling me you allowed this employee to breastfeed our son? You've gone completely mad. David, she was saving his life. Don't you understand? The doctors didn't know what to do. Doctor, Miller said that if he didn't eat soon, we would have to hospitalize him with intravenous feeding. He could have suffered permanent damage. Then you should have taken him to the hospital, not this. Do you have any idea what people will say if they find out? The Maxwell Davies, the investors, our friends. It will be a scandal. Sarah slowly stood up with Sam still asleep on her shoulder. Her voice sounded firmer than she felt. Missus, Maxwell Davies. I just wanted to help. The baby was hungry. I lost my daughter recently, and my body still produces milk. I didn't mean to offend you or cause you problems. I just wanted the child to live. Victoria looked her up and down with that disdain only someone raised in wealth can perfect. Your daughter? How convenient. And who assures me you don't have some disease? Drugs in your system? Alcohol? We know nothing about you. Your life. Your kind. Victoria. Enough. David stepped between the two women. Sarah passed all medical exams when we hired her. She is completely healthy, and thanks to her, our son is alive and well-fed for the first time in almost a week. As if to confirm his father's words, Sam stretched in Sarah's arms and made a small, satisfied sound, without waking. He looked completely different from the pale, weakened baby of the night before. He had color in his cheeks, was breathing deeply, and had even gained some weight in those few hours. Victoria clenched her jaw. She hated to admit it, but David was right. The baby looked better, much better. Fine, she finally said with a cold voice. But this ends now. I'll call Dr. Saunders, the pediatrician to prominent Sydney families. If anyone can find a formula that works, it's him. We don't need the alternative services of the employee. Dad, a childish voice sounded from the door. It was Ally, David's 7-year-old daughter from his first marriage. A slender girl with dark hair and curious eyes identical to her father's. Why are you shouting? You'll wake baby Sam. Go back to your room, Ally, Victoria ordered harshly. She had never connected with David's daughter, that girl who constantly reminded her that she wasn't the first wife, the first family. But I want to see my little brother. Dad said he was sick. David walked to his daughter and hugged her. He's better, princess. Much better. Miss Sarah helped him. Ally looked at Sarah with those deep eyes that seemed to see more than a 7-year-old should see. Did you cure my little brother? Sarah nodded with a sad smile. I just fed him, sweetie. Like mums do, Ally said innocently. Then she looked at Victoria. Why didn't you feed him? The silence that followed was deafening. Victoria stiffened, her face reddening with shame and anger. David cleared his throat uncomfortably. Sarah lowered her gaze. Because there are different ways to feed a baby, Ally, David finally said. Sometimes we use bottles with special formula. Victoria was. She had medical complications that prevented her from breastfeeding. It was a lie. Everyone in that room knew it. Victoria had rejected the idea of breastfeeding from the start. It ruins your figure, she had said. And besides, it's so old-fashioned. That's what modern formulas are for. But modern formulas hadn't worked for Sam. At that moment, the baby woke up, opened his little eyes and looked around disoriented. When his gaze fell on Sarah, something extraordinary happened. He smiled, a small, barely perceptible smile, but real, and extended his tiny hand towards her face. He's hungry again, Sarah whispered. She knew the signs, the movement of his mouth, the little sound, the way he searched with his head. Give him the bottle that's in the warmer, Victoria ordered abruptly. If he ate last night, he'll eat from a normal bottle now. David prepared the most expensive formula on the market, imported from Switzerland. He offered it to Sam. The baby rejected it immediately, turning his head, beginning to cry with frustration. They tried another brand, another temperature, another position. Nothing worked. Sam cried louder and louder, arching his small body, turning red with effort. It was the same desperate cry of the last 5 days. Please, David said, looking at Sarah with a plea in his eyes. Just one more time, until Dr. Saunders arrives. Victoria was about to protest, but Ally beat her to it. Let her, Mum Victoria. The baby is hungry. He'll get sick again. There was something in the girl's voice, a maturity that didn't match her age. Victoria looked at her with irritation, but said nothing. Sarah sat back in the rocking chair. With smooth, natural movements, she brought the baby to her chest. Sam calmed instantly and began to feed. His small fists relaxed, his breathing becoming deep and regular. David exhaled with relief. Ally smiled. Victoria left the room, slamming the door. What none of them knew was that at that precise moment, Maureen Kelly, the 60-year-old housekeeper who had worked for the family for 20 years, had heard everything from the hallway. And Maureen had a niece who worked at Woman's Day magazine. By the following afternoon, half of Sydney would be talking about the scandal at the Campbell mansion, but there was something else, something much darker. While Sam fed peacefully in Sarah's arms in a private clinic on the other side of the city, Dr. Julian Miller was reviewing the results of the blood tests he had taken from the baby days earlier. His hands trembled as he read the data on his computer screen. Sam's blood type did not match that of his parents, which was genetically impossible unless one of them was not actually his biological father. And Dr. Miller had just discovered who Sam Campbell Maxwell Davies' true father was. He picked up the phone with trembling hands and dialed a number he had saved for months, a number he never thought he would have to use. "Good afternoon," he said when someone answered on the other end. "I need to speak with Mr. Frank Reynolds. Tell him I have information about his son." At the Campbell mansion, as the October sun streamed through the windows, illuminating Sam's peaceful face, no one imagined that the truth was about to explode, and that when it did, it would destroy everything in its path. Frank Reynolds received Dr. Miller's call while having lunch at Aria Restaurant, one of Sydney's most acclaimed establishments. He was a major partner at Southern Cross Investments, the main competitor of Campbell Holdings. A 4-5-year-old man, brown hair, athletic build, and a smile that had captivated dozens of married women in Sydney's high society, including Victoria Maxwell Davies. "Are you absolutely sure?" Frank asked quietly, moving away from his table towards the restaurant's private restrooms. "The analyses don't lie, Mr. Reynolds. The baby's AB-negative blood type can only come from your genes. David Campbell is O positive. It's biologically impossible for him to be the father." Frank leaned against the marble wall, processing the information. 10 months ago, he had had a stormy affair with Victoria. They had met at a charity gala at the Langham, Sydney. She was bored with her perfect, predictable marriage. He was fascinated by the idea of conquering the wife of his biggest business rival. What began as a dangerous game turned into weekly meetings in a discreet apartment in Paddington. Victoria had told him she was taking contraceptives. Evidently, she had lied or been careless. "How many people know this?" Frank asked. "For now, only me. But I have to submit the full report to the hospital. It's protocol when there are blood incompatibilities. Someone else will eventually see it. How much do you want?" There was a silence on the other end of the line. Then Dr. Miller mentioned a figure, $50,000 AUD for his silence and for altering the medical records. "Done," Frank said. "I'll transfer the money this afternoon. But listen carefully, Miller. If a single word of this leaks, you won't just lose your medical license. I have contacts who can make your life very difficult." "Understood?" "Understood, Mr. Reynolds." Frank hung up and looked at himself in the mirror. He had a son, an heir. The baby bearing the Campbell surname was his. The irony was delicious and terrifying at the same time. Meanwhile, at the Mosman mansion, Sarah had been temporarily moved to a staff room on the same floor as Sam's nursery. David had insisted. If the baby only accepted her milk, she needed to be close 24 hours a day. Victoria had exploded at the suggestion. "You expect this woman to live on our floor? In the family rooms? It's temporary, Victoria, just until we find a solution. The solution is to find a formula that works. Dr. Saunders will come tomorrow. He'll sort this out." But deep down, Victoria knew no formula would work. There was something about Sam, something she didn't understand, that connected him to Sarah in an inexplicable way. That night, as Sarah fed Sam for the 5th time that day, David entered the room with 2 cups of tea. "I thought you might need this," he said, offering her one. "Chamomile tea. My gran said it helped with milk production." Sarah accepted the cup with a shy smile. "Thank you, Mr. Campbell. You're very kind. Call me David, please. After all you've done for my son, I think we can drop the formalities." He sat in the armchair opposite her. For the first time, Sarah saw him without the executive suit, without the mask of the powerful businessman. He wore jeans and a simple shirt. He looked tired, vulnerable, human. "What was your daughter's name?" David asked softly. Sarah felt the familiar lump in her throat. "Ella. Ella Riley was born on August 28th at 3 a.m. She weighed 2.9 kilograms. She had black hair like mine, and her eyes. I never got to know what color her eyes would be. She closed them before I could see them properly. I'm so sorry, Sarah. I can't imagine that pain. It's like a part of me died with her. The doctors said her heart wasn't properly formed, that there was nothing to do. but I felt her move inside me for 9 months. I heard her heartbeat. I dreamed of her future, and then, within hours, everything was gone. David leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. The father. There's no father? Well, yes there is. But he left when I told him I was pregnant. He was a waiter at the restaurant where I worked before. He said he wasn't ready to be a father, that he was too young. He was 26. Sarah laughed humorlessly. I was 24 and terrified, but I didn't run away. You're very brave. I'm not brave. I just do what I have to do to survive, like coming to Sydney, working in other people's houses, cleaning bathrooms for people who don't even look me in the eye. I look you in the eye, David said. And it was true. His gray eyes watched her with an intensity that made her feel uncomfortable and comforted at the same time. Sam finished eating and burped softly. Sarah laughed and rocked him in her arms. The baby looked at her with absolute adoration, his little fingers clinging to her blue blouse. It's strange, Sarah murmured. When I feed him, I feel as if Ella is here somehow. As if through Sam, she continues to live a little. David swallowed. There was something deeply moving about the scene. This young woman who had lost everything, giving life to his son with a generosity she had no obligation to offer. I'll pay you more, he said suddenly. Triple your current salary, and you'll have private health insurance, paid holidays, everything you need. You don't have to do that, Mr. David. I do it because I want to help. I know, and that's precisely why I want to do it. You are. He searched for the right words. You are exactly the kind of person Sam needs in his life. At that moment, the door burst open. It was Victoria, dressed in a Lululemon activewear set that cost more than Sarah's monthly salary. She had just returned from her private Pilates class. What a touching scene, she said sarcastically, the man of the house having tea with the employee. What's next, David? Dinner together? Perhaps going to the theater? Victoria, don't start. No, David, you don't start. It's humiliating enough that this woman is breastfeeding our son. Now you also have to make her your confidante. Sarah stood up with Sam asleep on her shoulder. Excuse me, ma'am. I didn't mean to cause problems. I'm going to take the baby to his cot. But Victoria blocked her path. You know what? I'm sick of this. Sick of seeing you in my house, in my apartment, with my son. Tomorrow Dr. Saunders comes, and when he finds the solution, you'll go back to cleaning floors, which is what you're good for. Victoria, enough. David stood up furiously. Sarah is the reason our son is alive. Show some gratitude. Gratitude? For what? For doing something I should have done? Thank you for constantly reminding me that I failed as a mother. No one is saying that. They don't have to. I see it in everyone's eyes and yours, in your daughter allies, in the employees. Everyone thinks I'm a terrible mother because my son didn't want my milk. For the first time, Sarah saw something akin to vulnerability in Victoria's eyes. It wasn't just arrogance or cruelty. There was pain there, shame, the kind of wound that comes from feeling inadequate at the one thing a woman is supposed to do naturally. Mrs. Maxwell Davies, Sarah said softly. No one thinks that. Sometimes babies are difficult. My cousin had the same problem with her son. It doesn't mean you're a bad mother. I don't need your pity, Victoria spat. And I definitely don't need your parenting advice. You lost your baby. I still have mine. We are not the same. The words fell like knives. Sarah pallid, feeling every syllable like a physical slap. David was paralyzed by the absolute cruelty of the statement. Get out of here, Victoria, David said in a dangerously low voice. Now, this is my house. It's our house, and I will not tolerate you speaking like that to someone who has only shown kindness. Leave before I say something I regret. Victoria looked at them both with pure hatred. Then her expression changed to something more calculating, more dangerous. Fine, I'm leaving. But know this, tomorrow, when Dr. Saunders comes, I'm going to demand a full investigation. I want blood tests, toxicology reports, criminal records. If this woman is going to be near my son, I'm going to make sure there's nothing strange in her past. There's nothing strange, Sarah said with dignity. You can investigate whatever you want. Oh, I will. And when I find something, because there's always something with people like you, I'll kick you out of this house and make sure you never work in any decent residence in Sydney again. She left, slamming the door so hard that Sam woke up and started crying. As Sarah calmed him, gently rocking him, David stood looking at the closed door. Their marriage had been a facade for years, but now the cracks were becoming chasms. What they didn't know was that Maureen, the housekeeper, had heard the entire conversation. And that very night, her niece would publish an article on the Woman's Day digital portal. Scandal in high society. Magnate David Campbell's wife refuses to breastfeed. Her son, domestic helper, becomes wet nurse to millionaire heir. By the next morning, David's phone wouldn't stop ringing, and Frank Reynolds would read the news over breakfast, smiling with satisfaction. His plan was taking shape. Soon, very soon, he would claim what was his. The scandal exploded like a bomb on Australian social media. By 8 a.m., the hashtag number Millionaire Baby Mama Drama was already trending on Twitter. Motherhood forums debated heatedly. Some defended Sarah as a modern hero. Others called her an opportunist, a gold digger, even accusing her of having planned everything. David discovered the article when his personal assistant, Robert, called him at 7:30 a.m. Mr. Campbell, we have a problem. A very big problem. On his mobile screen, David read the headline, Domestic helper breastfeeds millionaire David Campbell's son after wife refuses. The article was accompanied by a blurry photograph, clearly taken with a telephoto lens from somewhere in the garden, showing Sarah in the rocking chair by the window with Sam in her arms. The act of breastfeeding was not explicitly visible, but the position and context were unmistakable. How the hell did they get this? David roared. The networks are going crazy, sir. International media are already picking up the story. CNN, BBC World, even the New York Times is asking for statements. David ran down the marble stairs 2 at a time. He found Victoria in the gourmet kitchen, drinking her morning green juice while browsing on her iPad. Her face was pale with fury. Did you see it yet? She snapped without even greeting him. I just found out. Victoria, we have to handle this carefully. One wrong statement, and one wrong statement. David, we are the laughingstock of all Australia. My friends have already sent me 20 messages. The president of the charity club just called to offer her support, which is her elegant way of saying she wants gossip. The kitchen door opened. Sarah entered with Sam, who had just woken up. Seeing the expressions on David and Victoria's faces, she stopped dead. Is something wrong? Victoria let out a hysterical laugh. Is something wrong? You're famous, Sarah. All of Australia is talking about you. The little cleaner who saved the poor rich baby from the vain, cruel mother? What? Sarah pallid. David showed her his phone. Sarah read the article and felt her legs tremble. Tears began to roll down her cheeks. I didn't. I would never speak to the press. You have to believe me, Mr. Campbell. I never. I know, David said firmly. I know it wasn't you. Someone in this house spoke. As if summoned by black magic, Maureen entered at that moment with a tray of toast. Her expression was cautious, guilty. David looked directly into her eyes. Maureen, do you know anything about this? The 60-year-old woman lowered her gaze. I didn't speak directly to the press, Mr. Campbell, but it's possible I mentioned something to my niece. She works at Woman's Day magazine, David completed. You've worked here for 20 years, Maureen. 20 years in which this family trusted you, and this is how you repay us? It wasn't with bad intentions, I thought. I thought people should know the truth about how Miss Sarah saved the baby. She deserves recognition. Recognition! Victoria shouted. You gave her recognition by turning us into a circus show. Do you have any idea the damage you've caused? Maureen began to cry. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't think. You're fired, Victoria said coldly. Pack your things and get out of this house before noon. Victoria, wait. David intervened. Maureen has family who depend on. I don't care. Either she goes or I go. You decide. David clenched his jaw, looking at Maureen with regret. I'm sorry, Maureen, but you're going to have to leave. We'll pay you 3 months severance and a letter of recommendation, but after this, you can't stay. Maureen nodded, sobbing, and left the kitchen. At that moment, the mansion's doorbell rang. It was Dr. Albert Saunders, the pediatrician to prominent Australian families, a 60-year-old man with completely white hair and an impeccable reputation. David showed him into the main living room, where Sarah waited with Sam. Dr. Saunders, thank you for coming on such short notice. Of course, David, I heard about the rather unusual situation. He looked at Sarah with professional curiosity, not judgment. You must be the young lady who has been feeding the little one. Yes, doctor. My name is Sarah Riley. The doctor examined Sam carefully, checking his vital signs, his weight, his skin color, his reflexes. After 20 minutes, he took off his stethoscope and smiled. This baby is in excellent health. He's gained 200 grams in the last 3 days, which is remarkable considering he was previously losing weight. His vital signs are perfect. So why does he reject any formula? Victoria asked. There are documented cases of babies who develop very specific preferences. Some reject certain flavors, textures, or even temperatures. In rare cases, the emotional bond with the person who feeds them also plays an important role. He looked at Sarah. Clearly, this baby feels safe with you, Miss Riley. But there must be a formula that works, Victoria insisted. We can try. I have access to specialized formulas that aren't commercially available. However, I must be honest with you. He turned to David and Victoria. If the baby is thriving on breast milk, that is objectively the best nutritional option. No formula, however advanced, can fully replicate the antibodies and nutrients of human milk. But this can't continue indefinitely, Victoria protested. It's inappropriate. Inappropriate to save a child's life? Dr. Saunders looked at her sternly. Mrs. Maxwell Davies, I've seen many things in my 40 years of medical practice, and I assure you, a generous woman sharing her milk with a baby who needs it is nowhere near the most unusual. It is, in fact, one of the most beautiful and human things I have witnessed. Victoria pressed her lips together, but said nothing. My professional recommendation is this. Continue with the current arrangement for at least 2 more months. By then, Sam can begin to consume solid foods, and the transition will be easier. Meanwhile, we will gradually try to introduce 1 bottle a day, very slowly, for him to get used to it. David nodded. Thank you, Doctor. After Dr. Saunders left, Victoria turned to David, her eyes blazing. 2 months! He wants this to continue for 2 more months! It's what's best for Sam. And what about what's best for me? For us? For our reputation? Our reputation will recover. Our son cannot be replaced. Victoria grabbed her Hermes bag from the table. I'm going to Melbourne. I'm staying with my parents for a few days. I can't be here while all of Sydney talks about me as the mother who abandoned her baby. No one is saying that. Everyone is thinking it. And you? She pointed at Sarah, who had remained silent throughout the exchange. You'll stay here in my house, feeding my son, taking my place. Mrs. Maxwell Davies, I never, Sarah began. Don't speak to me. I don't want to hear your voice. Victoria slammed the door so hard that the paintings on the walls shook. David slumped onto the sofa, covering his face with his hands. Sam, oblivious to the drama, slept peacefully in Sarah's arms. I'm sorry, David whispered. I'm sorry you're going through this. None of this is your fault. Maybe I should leave, find another job. You can find a professional wet nurse, someone who… No, David looked up. Don't go, Sam needs you, and I need you here too. There was something in the way he said it, something that made Sarah's heart beat faster. It wasn't appropriate. He was her employer, a married man, a millionaire. She was just a domestic helper from a lost country town. But in that moment, looking into each other's eyes with a sleeping baby between them, they both felt that something had irrevocably changed. What neither knew was that Frank Reynolds was at that precise moment in his George Street office, reading the same article with a satisfied smile. He called his personal lawyer. Edward, I need you to prepare some documents. I'm going to request a paternity test. It's time David Campbell learned the truth about his perfect heir. And in the basement of the Campbell mansion, Maureen was packing her belongings with tears in her eyes. Before leaving, she wrote a note that she slid under Sarah's door. I'm sorry for everything, but there's something you need to know. Mrs. Victoria has secrets that explain why she hates you being here so much. Ask her about Frank Reynolds. Ask her what she was doing at the Ovolo Wulumulu every Wednesday afternoon. A year ago, Sarah would find that note 3 hours later, and when she did, she would begin to understand that Sam was not just a baby rejected by his mother. He was the living secret of a betrayal that was about to destroy 2 families. Sarah found Maureen's note when she returned to her room after putting Sam down for his afternoon nap. The folded paper was on the floor by the door. Her hands trembled as she read the hastily written words. Frank Reynolds, the Ovolo Wulumulu, Wednesday afternoon. Who was Frank Reynolds? The name sounded vaguely familiar, like something she had heard in hallway conversations among employees. She pulled out her mobile phone and searched Google. The first thing that appeared was a photograph of a handsome man on the cover of Australian Financial Review, Frank Reynolds, the investment shark threatening the Campbell empire. The article dated back 6 months and spoke of the fierce competition between Southern Cross Investments and Campbell Holdings for a multi-million-dollar contract in Melbourne. Sarah continued searching. She found social photographs. Frank at charity galas. Frank at luxury hotel openings. And then, she saw an image that chilled her blood. Frank Reynolds and Victoria Maxwell Davies together at a Red Cross dinner 11 months ago. He had his hand on her lower back. She was smiling in a way Sarah had never seen her smile at David. "Oh my God," she whispered. A knock on the door startled her. It was Ally, David's daughter. "Sarah, can I come in? I want to see my little brother." "Of course, sweetie, but he's sleeping." Ally came in and sat on the edge of the bed, looking towards the cot where Sam rested. She was a mature child for her 7 years, with those eyes that seemed to understand too much. "My mum left," Ally said suddenly. "My real mum. I mean, she died when I was 3. Cancer." Sarah sat beside her. "I'm so sorry, darling. Dad was very sad for a long time. Then he met Victoria 2 years ago. She's pretty, but she's not affectionate like my mum was. She never hugs me, never plays with me. Sometimes adults express love in different ways." "Do you think Victoria loves Sam?" Ally asked, with that brutal, childlike honesty. Sarah didn't know how to answer. Before she could, Ally continued. "I heard Victoria talking on the phone a few months ago. She was crying. She said she had made a terrible mistake, that she didn't know what to do, that he couldn't find out." "Who couldn't find out?" "I don't know, but I think she was talking about Dad." Ally looked at her with very serious eyes. "Do you think Victoria has secrets?" Before Sarah could answer, the door burst open. It was David, his face distraught. "Sarah, I need to talk to you." "Ally, go to your room, please." "But Dad." "Now, princess." Ally left, dragging her feet. David closed the door and leaned against it, as if he needed the physical support not to collapse. "I just received a legal notification. Frank Reynolds is requesting a paternity test for Sam." Sarah's world stopped. "What does it say?" "It says he has evidence that he is the biological father, that he had a relationship with Victoria, that Sam is his son, not mine." David slid down the door until he was sitting on the floor with his head in his hands. "Do you understand what this means? If it's true, if Sam isn't mine?" Sarah knelt in front of him. Instinctively, she took his hands. "David, breathe. You need to calm down." "How can I calm down? My wife cheated on me with my worst enemy, and the son I thought was mine." His voice broke. "Sam, that beautiful baby sleeping there, might not be mine. Even if he's not biologically yours, you are his father. You were there. You worried about him when he was sick. You are the one who loves him." David looked up. His gray eyes were full of tears. "How is it that you, who have suffered so much, who lost your own daughter, can be so wise and generous? Because pain taught me what truly matters, and it's not blood, it's love." They looked at each other for a long moment. David squeezed Sarah's hands. "I called Victoria. I demanded that she return to Sydney immediately, that she explain herself." She hung up. "What are you going to do?" "I'm going to take the paternity test. I need to know the truth, even if it destroys me." He stood up, helping Sarah to her feet too. "But there's something else I need you to know. No matter what I discover, no matter who Sam's biological father is, I will not allow Frank Reynolds to take him. That baby stays with me." At that moment, Sam woke up crying. Sarah approached the cot and took him in her arms. The baby immediately calmed down upon recognizing her. David watched them, mother and child, even if not by blood. There was more love in that image than in everything he had seen in his marriage to Victoria. "Sarah, there's something I want to ask you, and I need you to be completely honest with me." "Of course. Why do you do it? Why do you stay here enduring Victoria's contempt, people's stares, the scandal? You could leave, get a job in another house, where they would treat you with respect." Sarah looked at the baby in her arms. Sam watched her with those dark eyes, full of absolute trust. "Because when I feed Sam, when I look at him, I feel that my daughter didn't die in vain. I feel that her brief life had a purpose, to prepare me to save this baby. And besides," she paused, biting her lip, I care a lot. It's not just a job." "You care about Sam? Or, also?" David left the question hanging. But his eyes said everything. Sarah felt the heat rising to her face. "Mr. Campbell." "David, please. Call me David." "David, it wouldn't be appropriate. You are my employer. You are married. My marriage ended long before you arrived. I just didn't want to see it. Victoria and I were never right for each other. It was a convenient arrangement that became increasingly uncomfortable over time. Still, The conversation was interrupted by the mansion's doorbell. David went downstairs and opened the door. It was a messenger with an official envelope. "Mr. David Campbell?" "Yes. Court summons. You must appear next Monday for the paternity test. Here are all the details." David took the envelope with trembling hands. The messenger left. When David opened the document, he found something else inside. A photograph. It was Victoria and Frank, kissing passionately in what appeared to be the lobby of the Ovolo Wulumulu. The date marked January 15th, exactly 9 months before Sam's birth. David felt the floor move beneath his feet. He leaned against the wall to keep from falling. Sarah ran down the stairs, still with Sam in her arms. "What happened? What does the document say?" David showed her the photograph without a word. Sarah looked at it and felt nauseous. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "I have to talk to my lawyers. This is going to get very ugly, Sarah, very ugly. There will be legal battles, media scandals, investigations, and you're going to get caught in the middle of all of this if you stay." "I won't leave," Sarah said firmly. "Sam needs me, and I need you too, both of you." David looked at her with a mixture of gratitude, pain, and something deeper that neither was ready to name yet. "Then prepare yourself, because the storm is just beginning." That night, while Sydney slept, 3 people remained awake. David in his study, surrounded by lawyers, preparing his legal defense against Frank Reynolds. Victoria in her parents' mansion in Melbourne, drinking wine and crying, knowing that her lies were about to explode in her face. And Frank, in his luxury penthouse in Paddington, looking at a photograph of Sam he had found online, touching the screen with a finger and whispering, "Soon, my son, soon you'll be where you belong." But there was something none of them knew, something that would change everything completely. Dr. Miller, the same one who had sold his silence to Frank for $50,000 AUD, had kept a copy of the blood tests, and that copy showed something he hadn't told Frank, something crucial. The test indicated that Frank was Sam's father, but they also showed something else in the baby's genetics, a blood anomaly inherited through the maternal line, a rare condition that explained why Sam rejected commercial formulas. And the condition was present in Sarah's blood tests that the hospital had archived when she gave birth to Ella. It was a condition that occurred in less than 0.1% of the Australian population, the same condition in Sam and in Sarah, which was statistically impossible, unless there was a direct family connection between them. Dr. Miller kept that information in his safe. Someday, he thought, it would be worth much more than the $50,000 AUD Frank had paid him. But he didn't know that day would come much sooner than he imagined. Monday arrived too quickly. David, Victoria, and Frank appeared at the specialized clinical laboratory on Macquarie Street, accompanied by their respective lawyers. The tension was so thick it could be cut with a knife. Sarah had stayed at the mansion with Sam and Ali. The girl hadn't gone to school that week. David felt it was better to keep her away from the potentially cruel comments of other children who had no doubt heard their parents talking about the scandal. "Dad?" Ali asked as she watched Sarah prepare lunch in the enormous kitchen. "Of course. Darling. But what if it turns out Sam isn't really my brother? Will they take him away?" Sarah knelt in front of the girl, taking her small hands in hers. "Listen closely, Ali. Your dad loves Sam with all his heart. No matter what the papers say, that baby is your brother, and your dad will do everything he can to keep you together. And you're going to stay too?" It was a simple, innocent question, but loaded with so much weight that Sarah felt tears pricking her eyes. "As long as you need me, I'll be here." Ali hugged her tightly. "We need you very much. You're the only person who makes this house feel like a home." In the laboratory, things were significantly less emotional. Victoria had arrived 30 minutes late, wearing dark sunglasses and a mink coat, despite October in Sydney being relatively warm. "You're late," David said with an icy voice when she finally appeared. "The traffic from Melbourne was horrible. You could have come back last night as I asked. I didn't feel like seeing you." Frank watched the exchange with barely disguised satisfaction. He wore a dark gray Armani suit that had cost more than $5,000 AUD. His lawyer, a bald man named Edward Cooper, known for winning impossible cases using questionable methods, whispered something in his ear. "Good morning, everyone," said the doctor in charge, a geneticist named Dr. Peter Archer. "We will proceed with the blood extractions. The process is simple and painless. The results will be ready in 72 hours. Can't you speed it up?" Frank asked. "I'll pay whatever it takes. Scientific processes cannot be rushed, Mr. Reynolds. Precision is more important than speed." One by one, they took blood samples. David was first, his face impassive, but his knuckles white from clenching his fists. Victoria went next, avoiding looking anyone in the eye. Frank was last, smiling confidently. "We also need a sample from the baby," Dr. Archer indicated. "Is it absolutely necessary?" David asked. "He's a newborn." "I'm afraid so, but we'll use a very fine needle. It will be quick," David called Sarah. "Can you bring Sam to the lab? They need a blood sample." 30 minutes later, Sarah arrived with the baby. Victoria looked at her with disdain. Frank, however, observed her with curiosity. "So you're the famous wet nurse," Frank said, standing up and approaching. "I've read a lot about you in the news." "Mr. Reynolds?" Sarah said politely, but coldly. "That baby looks healthy. You've done a good job." He extended his hand to touch Sam, but Sarah instinctively recoiled. "I'd rather you didn't touch him." Frank's smile froze. "That baby could legally be mine in a few days. I suggest you change your attitude." "That baby," David intervened, placing himself between Frank and Sarah, "is mine until a legal document says otherwise, and I would appreciate it if you stayed away from him and the people who care for him." Always so territorial, David. Even with things that don't belong to you. The two men glared at each other with pure hatred. Edward Cooper had to intervene, placing a hand on Frank's shoulder. "Gentlemen, we are in a professional setting. Let's maintain composure." Dr. Archer entered at that moment. "Miss Riley, please come in with the baby." Sarah entered the extraction room. Dr. Archer was surprisingly gentle, distracting Sam with a colorful toy while extracting a small blood sample from his heel. The baby cried briefly but calmed when Sarah cradled him against her chest. "Done," the doctor said. "You can go. We'll call you on Thursday with the results." As Sarah left with Sam, she heard raised voices. David and Victoria were arguing in a corner of the waiting room. "How could you do this to me?" David's voice trembled with contained rage. "How long did it last? How many times in our bed?" "Never in our bed," Victoria replied in a tired voice. "It was always at the Ovolo Wulumulu. Wednesdays, Wednesdays, Wednesdays. I thought you were at your Pilates class." "I haven't been to Pilates in 2 years, David. I thought you would have noticed." "Why? Why did you do it?" Victoria finally took off her sunglasses. Her eyes were red, swollen from crying. "Because you were never really with me. You were always working or with Ally or thinking about your deceased wife. I was just an accessory, the trophy wife for your business events." "That's not true." "No? When was the last time you asked me how I was? What I felt? What I wanted out of life? For you, it was only important that I looked good in photographs and that I organized the perfect dinners. So, the solution was to sleep with my competitor? Get pregnant by him? I didn't plan to get pregnant. It was an accident. And when I found out, it was too late to." She stopped. "To what? To get rid of the pregnancy?" David looked at her in horror. "Of course I considered it. But then you were so excited about the idea of an heir. All the investors were asking about my pregnancy. And Frank said it was best to keep it a secret, that no one had to know. He knew from the beginning?" "Of course he knew. It's his son." The words fell like bombs. Sarah, who had been unintentionally listening from the hallway, felt her heart sink. She looked at Sam, so innocent, so oblivious to the chaos his mere existence had caused. Frank then appeared, his arrogant smile intact. "Victoria, darling, you shouldn't reveal all our secrets yet. There's still a lot to negotiate." "Negotiate?" David advanced towards Frank, but his lawyer stopped him. "Mr. Campbell, any act of violence would prejudice your legal position." David breathed heavily, trying to control himself. "If the results confirm you're the father, I'm going to destroy you, Frank, you and your company. I'll use every contact, every resource, every dollar I have. Go ahead. But remember that the judge will evaluate who is more fit to raise the child. A stable, successful man, without public scandals, or a humiliated cuckold who is on every cover as the cheated husband." Frank stepped dangerously close. "Besides, I have something you don't have." "What?" "The child's mother's love. Victoria will come with me when I win custody. We'll be a complete family. You'll be alone, David, as you always have been." Victoria did not contradict Frank's words, and that silence was more painful than any verbal admission. David turned and left without another word. Sarah quickly followed him with Sam in her arms. She caught up with him in the parking lot. David was leaning against his Mercedes, his hands covering his face. He was sobbing. That powerful man, that business magnate, cried like a child. Sarah approached, said nothing, just stood beside him with Sam between them, offering her silent presence. After several minutes, David looked up. "You heard everything?" "Yes." "Then you know I'm probably going to lose." Frank is right. If Victoria testifies in his favor, if they present evidence that they are a stable couple, then you'll fight. You don't give up without a fight. Why? Why should I fight for a son who isn't even biologically mine? Sarah placed a hand on his arm. Because love isn't in DNA, David. It's in the sleepless nights, in the worries, in wanting the best for him, no matter the personal cost. You are his father in all the ways that matter. David looked at her, really looked at her. He saw a young woman who had lost everything and yet found ways to give love. He saw strength and kindness. He saw everything Victoria never was. How is it possible that in the midst of all this hell, you are the only good thing that has happened to me? Sarah felt the warmth in her cheeks. David, I know it's inappropriate. I know the timing is terrible, but I need you to know that you've changed something in me, in this house, in everything. Before Sarah could answer, David's phone rang. It was his lead lawyer, Robert Flynn. David, we have a bigger problem. Frank just filed an emergency motion. He wants temporary custody of Sam immediately. He argues that while you are emotionally unstable and the baby depends on an employee for feeding, he can provide a more stable environment. He can do that? He already did. We have a court hearing tomorrow at 10 a.m. You need to prepare. David hung up and looked at Sarah with desperation. They're going to try to take him away from me tomorrow. But what neither of them knew was that Dr. Miller was at that precise moment looking at Sam's blood tests on his computer, and he had found the anomaly, the genetic connection between Sam and Sarah. He picked up the phone and dialed a number. It was time to increase the price of his silence. This information was worth much more than $50,000 AUD. This information was worth millions and was about to change the fate of everyone involved. The courtroom of Sydney Family Court was packed. Reporters, onlookers, and lawyers filled every available corner. The Campbell-Reynolds case had become the scandal of the year, and everyone wanted to witness the drama front row. David entered dressed in his best Brioni suit, but the dark circles under his gray eyes betrayed that he hadn't slept in days. His legal team surrounded him, Robert Flynn, and two other lawyers specializing in family law. Frank arrived minutes later, smiling with that irritating confidence, accompanied by Edward Cooper and Victoria. She wore a cream Chanel suit, her hair perfectly styled, impeccable makeup. She looked more like a model on a runway than a mother disputing custody of her child. Sarah was sitting on the public benches with Sam asleep in her lap. Ally was at the mansion with a temporary nanny. David had insisted that Sarah bring the baby. The judge needs to see that Sam is healthy, well cared for, and you are the reason for that. Justice Carol Miller entered the room. She was a woman in her 50s, with a serious expression and a reputation for being ruthless but fair. She had handled some of Australia's most complicated custody cases. Good morning. This is an extraordinary procedure requested by Mr. Frank Reynolds to determine temporary custody of the minor Sam Campbell Maxwell Davies until definitive paternity is resolved. Mr. Cooper, you may begin. Edward Cooper stood up, adjusting his Italian tie. Your Honor, my client seeks the best for the minor. The facts are clear. Mr. David Campbell is going through a severe emotional crisis resulting from the discovery of his wife's infidelity. His mental state is unstable. Furthermore, the baby is completely dependent on a domestic helper for his feeding, which creates an unhealthy dependency situation. Do you have evidence of Mr. Campbell's alleged unstable mental state? The judge asked. Testimonies from employees who have seen him cry, shout, behave erratically. Moreover, Your Honor, the minor is being breastfed by a woman who is not his mother, an employee. This raises serious concerns about appropriate boundaries and professionalism. Robert Flynn stood up. Objection. Miss Sarah Riley saved the baby's life when no doctor could find a solution. She is not just any employee. She is the reason that child is alive today. Understood, Justice Miller said. Mr. Cooper, what does your client propose as an alternative? Mr. Reynolds and Mrs. Maxwell Davies are prepared to provide a stable home for the minor. A professional wet nurse has already been hired. The baby would receive care from both biological parents in an appropriate family environment. The judge looked at Victoria. Mrs. Maxwell Davies, do you confirm that you wish to move in with Mr. Reynolds and take your son with you? Victoria stood up. Her voice sounded rehearsed, mechanical. Yes, Your Honor. I made mistakes in my marriage, but my priority has always been Sam's well-being. Frank is his biological father, and together we can give him a complete family. and your daughter Ally, Mr. Campbell's daughter from his first marriage. How would this affect her relationship with her brother? Victoria hesitated. She clearly hadn't considered that question. Well, Ally isn't my biological daughter. She would stay with David, I suppose. A murmur ran through the room. Even Justice Miller frowned at the coldness of the response. David clenched his fists under the table. Robert Flynn seized the moment. Your Honor, that precisely proves our point. Mrs. Maxwell Davies is willing to separate two siblings, to snatch the baby from the only home he has known, from his sister, who adores him. Is that acting in the best interest of the minor? Mr. Flynn, present your case, the judge ordered. With pleasure. Your Honor, Mr. Campbell has been Sam's father from the moment of his birth. He was present at every medical visit, every sleepless night, every critical moment when the baby was sick. Biology does not define paternity. Love does. And the baby's dependence on the domestic helper, Miss Sarah Riley. Robert gestured towards where Sarah was. Is a 4-year-old woman who lost her own baby 2 months ago. When Sam was literally starving, she offered her breast milk without expecting anything in return. She has been medically evaluated, is completely healthy, and the baby is thriving under her care. The judge looked towards Sarah. Miss Riley, could you approach with the baby, please? Sarah felt her legs tremble as she walked towards the stand. Sam woke up in her arms, looking around curiously. Miss Riley, is it true that you breastfeed this baby? Yes, Your Honor. Why do you do it? What do you get out of it? Sarah looked at Sam, then at the judge. I don't get anything material, Your Honor. I do it because when my daughter died, I felt a part of me died with her. When I had the opportunity to save Sam, I felt that my daughter hadn't died in vain, that her brief life had a purpose. There was silence in the room. Even some reporters had tears in their eyes. Do you have an emotional attachment to the baby? Yes, Your Honor, very much. And with Mr. Campbell? The question dropped like a bomb. Sarah felt the heat rising to her face. I respect Mr. Campbell very much. He is a good man and a loving father. That doesn't answer my question, Miss Riley. Before Sarah could answer, the courtroom door burst open. A man in his 40s, dressed in a doctor's coat, rushed in. Excuse me, Your Honor. My name is Dr. Julian Miller. I have crucial information regarding this case that must be heard immediately. Justice Miller frowned. Dr. Miller, this is highly irregular. Who gave you permission to interrupt these proceedings? No one, Your Honor, but what I have to say will completely change this case. I have evidence of a genetic connection between the baby and Miss Sarah Riley. Chaos erupted in the courtroom. Reporters shouted questions. David stood up. Frank paled. Victoria froze. Order! The judge banged her gavel. Dr. Miller, approach. And this better be legitimate, or I will charge you with contempt. Dr. Miller walked to the stand, pulling several documents from a manila envelope. Your Honor, I performed blood tests on baby Sam 2 weeks ago. During the standard procedure, I discovered a rare blood anomaly, a condition called Bombay syndrome that affects less than 0.01% of the population. And what does that have to do with Miss Riley? I checked the records of Royal North Shore Hospital, where Miss Riley gave birth 2 months ago. Her analyses show the same anomaly. The statistical probability of 2 unrelated people having this condition and being in this exact situation is approximately 1 in 10 million. Sarah felt the world spin. What are you saying? I'm saying that you and baby Sam share an extremely rare genetic marker, which suggests a direct family relationship. That's impossible, Frank shouted. I am the child's father. The analyses will confirm it. You may be the biological father, Mr. Reynolds, but there is evidence that Miss Riley could be related to the baby through the maternal line. Victoria stood up, trembling. That's ridiculous. I am the mother. I gave birth to Sam. There are hospital records, witnesses. Unless. Dr. Miller paused dramatically. Unless there was a baby swap. The silence that followed was absolute. No one breathed. No one moved. What? Sarah whispered. Miss Riley, where did you give birth to your baby? At Royal North Shore Hospital, 3rd floor, maternity ward. What day? August 28th. Dr. Miller looked at Victoria. And you, Mrs. Maxwell Davies? Victoria was pale as a ghost. August 28th. Royal North Shore Hospital, 3rd floor. The same day, the same hospital, the same floor. Dr. Miller let the information sink in. There was a chaotic night shift that night. A new nurse, 2 babies born minutes apart, and now 2 babies with inexplicable connections. David slowly approached Sarah. Are you saying... I'm saying that it's possible there was a mix-up, that the baby who died was not Miss Riley's daughter, and that Sam is my son. Sarah finished, tears rolling down her cheeks. Sam is my biological son. The courtroom erupted in total chaos. Justice Miller pounded her gavel uselessly, trying to restore order. Frank looked at Dr. Miller with pure hatred. How much were you paid to say this? Was it Campbell? How much? No one paid me to tell the truth, although you paid me 500,000 AUD, and signed documents permanently relinquishing all my paternal rights. It's a bargain, considering I could ask for much more in court. You're despicable, Sarah spat. How can you do this? Use your own son to extort? He's not my son, Sarah. He's a means to an end. I didn't want to be a father 2 years ago, and I don't want to be one now. But if the universe gives me a chance to improve my life, I'd be foolish not to take it. David pulled out his phone. Carlos, come to the main entrance. We have an intruder. I'm no intruder, Tom protested. I'm the biological father. I have every right to be here. Not on private property without an invitation. 2 security guards appeared. Escort Mr. O'Connor off the property. If he returns, call the police. As they escorted him out, Tom shouted toward Sarah, Think carefully. Either you pay me or I'll see you in court. And believe me, judges favor the rights of biological fathers. When they finally left, Sarah collapsed against David, trembling. He hugged her, feeling her sob against his chest. He can't take him away from me. Not after everything. I can't lose Sam again. You won't. I promise you. David held her tighter. I'm going to talk to Robert. We'll find a way to neutralize Tom. That night, after putting Sam and Ally to bed, David and Sarah met in the study with Robert Flynn. The situation is complicated, the lawyer admitted. Tom has biological rights. If he requests a formal paternity test and establishes custody, he legally has a right to visits, at minimum. What if we pay him? David asked. That would be extortion, technically illegal. But Robert paused. If he voluntarily agrees to relinquish his rights in exchange for an agreed sum, presenting it as a mutual agreement, it could work. I don't want to give him a single dollar, Sarah said bitterly. He doesn't deserve it. You're right, he doesn't deserve it. But sometimes we have to swallow our pride to protect what we love most. David took Sarah's hand. $500,000. AUD is a lot of money, but for me, it's nothing compared to the peace of mind of knowing Sam will be safe. What if he comes back asking for more? What if this never ends? Robert intervened. That's why the agreement must be airtight. Total and irrevocable relinquishment of paternal rights. Confidentiality clause. If he violates any term, he must return the money multiplied by 3. Prepare the documents, David ordered, but investigate him first. I want to know everything about Tom O'Connor, where he lives, where he works, if he has debts, a record, everything. Over the next few days, while waiting for the report on Tom, the tension in the house was palpable. Sarah barely slept, constantly checking the locks, making sure the guards were alert. David noticed the dark circles under her eyes, how she startled at any noise. One night he found her in Sam's room at 3 a.m., simply watching him sleep. You can't live like this, he said softly from the doorway. I'm afraid that one day I'll wake up, and he won't be there. Tom will find a way to snatch him away. David entered the room and stood beside her, looking at the baby sleeping peacefully. Sarah, I need to tell you something, and maybe it's not the right time, but if I don't say it now, I think I'm going to explode. What is it? These last 2 months, seeing you with Sam, seeing you with Ally, sharing everything with you, I've realized something. He turned to look at her directly. I've fallen in love with you. Sarah felt her heart stop. David, I know, it's complicated. I know I'm still technically married, although Victoria signed the divorce papers last week. I know you started as my employee, that there are differences in class, age, everything, but none of that matters to me. The only thing that matters is that when I'm with you, I feel like I'm finally in the right place. I feel something for you too, Sarah admitted, tears streaming down her cheeks. But I'm so scared. Scared that this is too fast. Scared of ruining it. Scared that one day you'll wake up and realize you made a mistake. The only mistake I made was not telling you sooner. David wiped her tears with his thumb. I'm not asking you to marry me tomorrow. I'm just asking you to give me a chance, to see where this takes us. Sarah looked at him, into those gray eyes that had gone from intimidating her to making her feel safe. She thought of everything they had been through together, how he had never treated her as less, how he loved Sam as if he were his own. Okay, she whispered. A chance. David smiled. And at that moment, with the moonlight streaming through the window and Sam sleeping between them, he leaned in and kissed her. It was a kiss, full of promises and hope. When they separated, Sarah rested her forehead against his. "What are we going to do about Tom? We're going to give him his money. We're going to make him sign those papers. And then we're going to forget he exists." David kissed her forehead again. "And we're going to be a family. You, me, Sam, and Ali, a real family." The next day, Robert arrived with his report on Tom. He had gambling debts of Ibait, Ling Ling Ling, Namalia, Vida, Bama, Azas Fik, and there's Fik, Ifor, Div Sr, H, Ispal and Sal, Ven, Guy, H, ABS, and Standard, Doisa, DA, B, and USA, I, Esta, EN, I, Isen, 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 Windustat Isen as in Emmer, N, the Slater, L, E, V, V, I, Brow, Indo, Z, W, John Deg, I, E Kilo, Distia, Ken, Ara, Tue, Nauda, Misa Saindras, Isanala, F, F, and they Fikandas friends of Idan, all love, and R, Izeni Kansa, Vanta Iazi, Ia, N, and design, they Marga, Gobi, W, Yisiklandan Andan Barika, Sing, Andan Barika, M, Easy You Are, N, Ilagzan, Enda, Very Crise, M, You and Me, Vendas, Emillas, Iwendes, Wigas, L, B, Awinga, Yo, Izer, N, N, I, Bilomelo Yem, Bilomelo Bie, Yendisia Kia, Enda, Atam, L, No, S, Effelator, Dintram, I, Yen, Minasa, Disakarasa, Minasasa, Parasikarasa, Minasasa, Burukarasa, Minasasa, Murukarasa, G, R, Iexastasav, Inexastasaklipo parasav, Iexastasafas, L, Alem, Tu, Ives, Ablau, N, Mazili, Say, Echa, Ibestas of Peka, Ipa, It, is one so, Datila, Bilongastamon, Minogas, Velandi alastamo, Dazis Falisaza, Contralas Ingsaza, Ivi, M, P, Awer, Igin, Assur, R, Ars, Abia, Ara, I Novisa, J, Tufaun, Flowen, Owen, Flowen, B, if so ported, and how ported, forforded in Zomen, N, Avgamda gas, Investo 1 houen, Tua, H, Isendalau, N, Indiawa, G, Aver and D, Nawa, in the Seist, and the Seist, Datiem, A, and B, L, Isen Amagusa, Isendes, H, Nauifli, Ixo, Ev, as, A, L, Ivor, Divuste Dudu, Yas, Daiza, Even, Dallas, Izer, L, Lindas, Privia, Ofipa, Oviba, Avilara Siesisant, and Diararau, K, Ama, Note, Ei, Nandasi, N, Mitor, G, F, if side, E, go, Bia, E, go, Arre, E, 7, L, La, Asifro, C, Kak, V, and Danlising grow, B, Ari, Is, a nice to Mason, Istina, a nice to Mason, Ingien, there, Mai, 19 flush, Korda, Diba, 8, Eri, Igo Barayes, B, and for Una, Despawaz, Ingstend, R, Bista, C, year, N, even to, use freight, hour, Usfraid, C. L. Uverifa, Misa, Or. D. Flas, E. And De, De, B. Undersof. And the CFRU and. Isser, even dust, H. Goa, K. Iba, Aisha, 2. Esacha, O. Ki, Entengstein, Valiant 24-5, Claston Moors, Isari and Saling, Elastisa, Afand, H. Inge, Distas, A. Thanks for watching. Amaste view the Sika, N. Bird, G. In front, Doc, and Wid, and the doct, in front, Isa, Kram, Ofram Kram, Isa, en Itales get in the expedo, Ifara, then, Yesuna inafu for game, Ina Yesuna yes, fleas, P, and so, Wella, least, upper, by, Wella, Ard, Amisha, Alanta, Indiandia, Amishama, Deinantofulo Vansi, Iba mi fort, Elika, P, Visa, Pia, Isli, Anguali, Andasia, Bankly Fru, Boys for Stroma, Goma, Imazi, L, E4, Wasalankov Forikov, E4 Salankov Peas, Andrazi, Or, R, Vol, E, Uzafale, N, US, N, Via, N, A, P, Arre, Ian Franza, that is to us time, Ian Frant, they ha, be find, they ha, E, C, Don, Ingles andatisan, Don, Anaran, Idia, my Sancha, with my Sancha, P, Ella, Ina, Balistre, Yesta Shah, H, and, Viso, N, as one, L, Singstawa, and Disiza Halias, Itiam, as Wu, G, I, V, E, and, Dumafor, Infor, and for, and after, H, I, Y, M, DZ, W, H, Imi4, then, A, Enda, H week, Ever, Basing data, W, Adia, and D show, and dera, Inajing, and D show, VG enda, Inter, Isa, these are, even frave, enda, even assay, enda, ve, ames, fen, fern, Ian, D, our, E, our men, these agro, Isen, Diogan, and Keaton, C, E, mas. If you know that, then the sender, it's Masi. In the inter, it's Asand. Des India Sali, Abiso Roma, Imo Asuria Sala. B, except a nident. And the Doiden way, the. Even Kosa, Piven Kosa, W. I finta 19. I finta 9 discern. Endatisa. H, Ivoma, Avusicato, Ivo musicato ma, you, our, or, C, and thou, you vendor for, itiando for, and C, if you won, elasha, if you won, ilamu, if, you num, if, and cri slash, and gevi, o vevi santrasina, n, faxa, if CSL, n, vena coi de lis, W, isatare, vil, I, H, Ayuzi, Nemeva, Lingdidia, L, E, C, Ivan Kandav, doze, Espro, of Yukandav doze, De, Yukandav, is Kandav doze, of Yukandav, Isa, Uwa, Donifaus, Turn, Fing, Enaife, Larunala, 90, Visare, Are, V, Ifask, Ezi, Ili, Ailisa, Aziflisis, Otisiflisi, Aziflisisi, N, P, M, R, Ingoran Dumingara, demindera, orarazanda, etizand. Si stella, laking en sawa, en v deliu vido, under t, w, h, istandregenta, dongro, and the ule, envre, h may, you've sent the Santa show elinas fam. This, fine of youth, my, G, N, have vest this way, the instout, age, Ivan, dat Olivan, elalassa, dat Oliva, de staan a philo en v, visa, biza, and the every biza, on scrau. C, la sala, lise, M, is videos, N, verdo 1, lizisen, lexas, da, vese, in the stakes, vese, ofese, H, and, dated, and at, M, ise, agestua, ifractoriawa, bis flak, isa glek, is this T, Eva, fun, Iva, N, our bisia, G, W, to seek, anitufos, a to seek, Eastan, Esther, Rao, Isanda, C, Isista, Evisel verm, us, and this, and asho, Evisel, it's, you, milavu, L, iawawawa, Ander, the nama diakralu, desla, F, taxtandisya, aushi contara, Ivna, B, and B, are, Izeng, H, Ivan, Sieng, and 5 year, and a 5 year, and 5 year, F, Mas, Yis nawas, Andisela, Disasia mula, L, O wuni, every, W, Ye, Ila, IB, enter, this fine, A, M, Awinau, Maikanstraza, and the, Divut, Eiza, Edieza, Edia, Jaro now enter, and the tramprisa, now enter, and the tramprisa, Ikatsalas, I could, N, hours, interviews, interremark, R, Arifrandi, Makusha, Indioga, Arifrandiaskon, B, Wevuant, R, this Tom, is this a, Lisa dantia before sida, Afia Gue, our, Lisa, F, I weigh, Dona diesa, on that, C, Ivam, foyisent, verofo, W, Istraseta, Ita, 8, A, Na, N, and iso C, and especially B, and especially, Oki, Mini below, T, and, in fermenta BF, in front, A, and A, Ye, Yen, E, P, R, in plaza, Vimas, in plaza, El Gor Facendra Masha, de diso, Isanamaniza, N, Muran, Ye, alas, do, agrafo, and the Vigdus Digzamsis Tengses, N, Isha, Timesara. If you were serve and dongly programmed, Maduna and Daligazer, Dantli, W, Iso, Akiso, Il9, Owing Scalo, L, Igai, Iquaiditwalanda, C, Ye, N for the scheme, and 12 of these, and the dues, and the dues, and the dues, F, I go and do's no kufaftaps, C, Istia, ver, my bisada, Are, SP, Iska, A, Moamle, Suabi, W, Igenda C, 3, Dia, and Diza, even signed inside, even Befland, needn't, even, I diven, ever see, Naye, Ilas, Andelas, Eliso, das white in the arter, in there, in the 7-3, awo, M, and on BB, C, Indin Mara, Atarmara tispara tispa. Ifolo starmara. En. Ovrombia mito fara misieta. Diza fara misieta para fara. Erzi. Ifsan. Ikanda. God. Yi. Nog. Imostaf. Ivia. Envia. Ifidia. Via. Katandi bad. Tanta. Visentant. Nesh. H. Iblasti. Miskali. And. Eide. O. Maina. Delaina CFC. Crow. De Crow. NT4. ND4. Ista. Mazasi. Banalisa. L. R. Eva. B. Eva. L. Aya. N. Even that. N. Even that. Enda. So, Abisa. Even turn. Of. Against Aramo. Wenti ace. H. M. Ivyo. Even that and Hansen Dava made it. In dieses problem sonnet. N. Te. Yiaze. Yek. Andega. And. Next are. Uvika. Andegaft. F. H. Where. Ikama. Isan. Is vironte. Is nine tifa. P. A. Vising. Aid. Ibak. Amgasant. Te. In fact before watching. And after steamend. We have you white. And you white. I. N. A. B. L. R. I. This. G. H. This. Awes. 8. Ankoramsiauna. Komenaf iku. Dufen mausi. Va. Vulen. Iga. Or. Versta. Kwai. Ismaba. M. 100,000 AUD. He had been living with different women in Melbourne. No lasting relationships. Temporary jobs. Nothing stable. He. Saloza looking for a lucky break. Robert concluded. But that makes him dangerous. Desperate people are unpredictable. Then let. Give him what wants. Davi decided. But with our conditions and with police supervision present when he sees the documents. The meeting was scheduled for the following Monday. In Robert. Office. With anotary presentant war police officers witnesses. Tomo. Connor signed the total relinquishment of his paternal rights over Sam. 500,000 AUD, Tom said, checking the bank transfer on his phone. Pleasure doing business with you. If you ever come near Sarah, Sam, or any member of my family again, this transfer automatically reverses and we will sue you for 3 times the amount. Understood? David's voice was cold steel. Understood perfectly. Don't worry. You'll never see me again. Tom looked at Sarah one last time. I hope you're happy. Really. You were always too good for me. And with that, he left their lives forever. Sarah felt as if an enormous weight had been lifted from her shoulders. David hugged her right there in the office. It's over, he whispered. It's finally over. But as they celebrated their victory, neither noticed the envelope that had arrived that morning at the mansion. A letter sent from Melbourne. It was from Victoria. And what it contained would change everything once more. Victoria's letter remained unopened on David's desk for 2 days. Every time he passed it, he felt a mixture of curiosity and dread. Finally, one afternoon, while Sarah was in the garden with the children, he mustered the courage and opened it. Dear David, I know I don't deserve your attention, much less your forgiveness, but I need to write this before I can move on with my life. For months, I've been in intensive therapy. My psychiatrist says I suffer from severe depression and that I've probably had it for years without treating it. That doesn't excuse my actions, but perhaps it explains them. I never loved you as you deserve to be loved. I married you for the wrong reasons: security, status, escaping my family's expectations. And when I got pregnant by Frank, I panicked, not because of the baby, but because of losing everything I had built. The irony is cruel. The baby I carried in my womb for 9 months, the one I felt move, the one I dreamed of knowing, died, and I never knew it. For 2 months I believed my son was alive, that he was simply rejecting me as a mother. Now I understand that the universe punished me in the most painful way possible. I'm not writing to ask for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I'm writing because I want you to know that Sarah is everything I never could be. She is genuine, loving, brave. Take care of her and tell her I'm sorry for all the pain I caused her. I'm also writing because I need you to know something about Ally. She was never just your first wife's daughter to me. She was a constant reminder that I wasn't the first, that I would never be enough. But now, in therapy, I realize how cruel I was to an innocent child who only wanted love. If you can, tell her I'm sorry, that she always deserved more than I gave her. The divorce is signed. I don't want anything from you. I just want peace. Take care of Sam, and tell Sarah that thanks to her, I now know what true maternal love is. I saw it in every glance she gave that baby, even when she believed he wasn't hers. With regret and something akin to gratitude, Victoria. David finished reading with tears in his eyes. It was strange. He had hated Victoria for weeks, but this letter showed a broken woman, finally confronting her demons. That night, after dinner, he gathered everyone in the living room, Sarah, Ally, and Sam on his playmat on the floor. I received a letter from Victoria, he announced. Ally, there's something she wants you to know. He read the relevant part of the letter to the girl. Ally listened in silence, processing the words. She really is sorry? She finally asked. I think so, Princess. People make mistakes, sometimes very big mistakes, but the important thing is whether they learn from them. Ally thought for a moment. Then she approached Sarah and snuggled next to her. I'm glad you're here. You're a better mum than Victoria. Sarah hugged the girl, feeling tears threatening to fall. I will never try to replace your real mum, Ally, but I promise I will always love you. I know. That's why I'll call you Mum Sarah, like kids do with their stepmoms in movies, but in the nice way. David watched the scene, his heart full. His broken family had been rebuilt in the most unexpected way. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. The following months brought beautiful changes. David's divorce was finalized in January. By March, he officially proposed to Sarah in the same garden where she had saved Sam that first night. I know it's fast, David said, kneeling with a diamond ring that had belonged to his mother, his first wife. I know all this has been crazy, but I also know that I don't want to spend another day without you officially being my family. Sarah cried, laughed, and said yes 1,000 times. They married in an intimate ceremony in May with only close friends and family. Ally was the bridesmaid, dressed in a beautiful lavender dress. Sam, now 8 months old, crawled everywhere in his little suit. Sarah's mother traveled from Wagga Wagga, still unable to believe the turn her daughter's life had taken. My girl, the domestic helper, marrying a millionaire, she said through tears. It's like a fairy tale. It's not a fairy tale, Mum, Sarah corrected. Fairy tales don't have so much pain. This is real life, complicated, painful, but also beautiful. During the reception, David gave a speech that left everyone crying. A year ago, my life was perfect on paper. I had money, success, a family that looked good in photographs, but I was empty inside. Then Sarah arrived, a woman who had lost everything, but who still had room in her heart to save my son. We didn't know then that he was her son too. Maybe fate knew. Maybe there was a reason why she was exactly where she needed to be that night. I don't believe in coincidences. I believe some people are meant to meet. And I was meant to find this extraordinary woman who taught me that true love has nothing to do with blood, money, or status. It has to do with being present, with choosing to stay, with loving unconditionally. He raised his glass to Sarah, the woman who saved my son and me in the process. Everyone toasted with tears in their eyes. 6 months after the wedding, Sarah discovered she was pregnant again. This time, David was at every medical appointment. He held her hand during every ultrasound, and when their daughter was born in February of the following year, a perfect baby with Sarah's eyes and David's smile, they named her Ella Valentina Campbell Riley. Ella for the baby Sarah thought she had lost. Valentina, because despite everything, Victoria had been part of the story that had brought them together. Ally adored her new little sister, and Sam, now a year and a half old, looked at her with that precious childlike curiosity. We're a big family, Ally said one afternoon as they were all in the garden. A weird, but big one. The best kind of family, Sarah agreed with Ella in her arms, and Sam playing at her feet. David hugged her from behind, kissing her head. Do you remember that night when you knocked on my door, offering help? Every day. That was the night everything changed. It was the night a millionaire baby wouldn't eat anything, and a cleaner gave him breast milk, and he was saved. But not only was he saved, we were all saved. Sarah turned to look at him. Do you think Victoria is okay? I hope so. I received a message from her a month ago. She's engaged to an architect from Melbourne. She seems happy, or at least at peace. I'm glad for her. You have too generous a heart. No, I just understand that we are all doing the best we can with what we have. Victoria lost her baby. I got mine back. Life is strange that way. That night, after putting the 3 children to bed, David and Sarah sat on their bedroom balcony, looking at the stars over Sydney. "Did you ever imagine your life would be like this?" David asked. "Never, not even in my wildest dreams. 2 years ago, I was cleaning houses, pregnant and alone. Now I'm married to the man I love. I have 3 beautiful children. I live in a mansion. It's surreal. Are you happy?" Sarah thought for a moment. She thought of all the pain she had been through, the loss, the grief, the humiliation. But she also thought of Sam laughing, of Ally calling her Mum Sarah, of Ella sleeping peacefully in her cot, of David, her husband, her partner, her love. "I am more than happy. I am complete." David kissed her. And in that kiss there were promises of mornings together, of challenges they would face united, of love that would grow with the years. Because in the end, the story had never been about a millionaire baby who wouldn't eat. It had been about finding family in the most unexpected places, about love that transcends biology, about second chances and intertwined destinies. It had been about a woman who lost everything and found more than she ever dreamed, and about a man who had everything and discovered he had nothing until he found true love. That night, as Sydney slept and the stars shone over the mansion in Mosman, the Campbell-Riley family rested in peace, complete, healed, and finally home. The end.